Hi again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Talkin Beavers. It's a Halloween edition. Coming up, we'll actually talk a little bit about Halloween and costumes and maybe a Lon Chaney Jr. reference. We'll also be dealing with the fact that the Beavers are going to the Kingpin in the South right now, although the Utah Utes are coming off a loss, falling from number 3 to number 13, but they're still talking boldly about running the table and ending up in the second college football playoff. We're going to talk about the Utes and, of course, the Beavs heading to Salt Lake City. Talkin Beavers starts right now. The Beavers heading to Salt Lake City and beautiful Rice-Eccles Stadium in the shadows of the Wasatch Mountain Range. The game will start in the day and end on Halloween night as we welcome you into the Flat Tail Brewing Studios. Mike Parker along with Sports Illustrated's Lindsay Schnell, former Beaver great Slade Norris. Great to have you with us tonight. Thanks for tuning in. And we will get to a lot of things, including the Halloween event in Salt Lake City. But before we get there, Slade, Lindsay, just your reaction to, your takeaways from the Colorado game.
It was ugly. It was ugly. I think that it's going to be ugly for a couple years. The thing that stood out to me most was now the defense played better. The defense gave the offense opportunities at the end to win the game, so that's a step in the right direction. Ryan Nall looked really good. I think he's a bright spot. I will say that the receivers look terrible right now, quite frankly. None of them can catch a ball when it counts. But the biggest thing that stood out to me, because I was there, I was at postgame, I don't know that guys are mad that they're losing. That's a problem.
If that's true, then the acceptance of it becomes, you just can't. I mean, they have dropped 16 of their last 18, Slade, and that's, at times, maybe you do become a little bit inured to it, a little more accepting of it. What about that as a factor? Do they need to be angrier?
From my, perception on things, and from when I was playing, I'll go back to the Penn State game. On the way back in the plane, we had some younger players who were joking around, getting on the plane, and one of our seniors walked over and said, "Hey, shut up. If you don't, you can find your own way home because you're not getting on this plane." Wow. And that's the kind of leadership that we had. It's, we came here on a business trip. We didn't come here for fun. This is a business trip, and we didn't perform the way we wanted to. We didn't get our job done. So why would you be happy and celebrating and laughing going home? You don't. You go home and you prepare for the next week, and that's the way they needed to take it, as a serious, serious thing. And I wasn't there this week, so I don't know. I didn't see what you saw.
That's
but if that's
purely
the case,
my observation, to be clear. And one thing that you have to, it's in this weird, when you're changing a system, changing a culture, and not that I think the culture was bad before under Riley, but it's weird because your young kids become the ones that you're really teaching. But as a young kid, how do you step up and tell a veteran, like, hey, it's not cool that you had a good game, we lost? So you have this weird thing. But afterward, Gary Anderson did say, he's like, I would take 30 or 40 guys like Ryan Nall.
And he's young. He's a redshirt freshman. And the quarterback position, certainly we're talking about young players. The Beavers, the youngest quarterback core in all of the country. And the Beavers used, too, as we saw, in very creative sort of ways, with Nick Mitchell starting and handing to Seth Collins. And then, of course, later Collins threw to Mitchell to help set up a Beaver score. There's the dimension of Collins racing around in. And Nick Mitchell here, Slade, I thought gave a lot of hope for what could be under his watch when he's in. That throw to Bolden was a thing of beauty.
He had a couple throws that were things of beauty, and unfortunately we had some wide receiver drops and some offensive PI calls. But he, I thought, as the first half went along, really started to gain some traction. I mean, he had some beautiful throws right before the half that we couldn't complete, unfortunately, and get a field goal or a late touchdown. But I was really hoping to see more of him start in the second half, because I felt he really started to gain momentum. He was kind of getting the feel of things, and then all of a sudden they put Seth back in. So that's one thing we're going to have to see how they work those things out, because honestly, they say, two quarterbacks, you don't have any. But I kind of like it because the guys are so different, and Seth brings such a different, not only play style, but mentality to the game. I mean, I don't know. I think it could work. They just have to walk the fine line of, once somebody gets the momentum, let them roll with it.
I appreciate that Slade is an eternal optimist when it comes to this program.
Well, you're looking at another one.
I know.
here, too.
I'm sandwiched here.
Okay.
I will say this. I think that that's true. I like that they bring a different style, but who's the leader? That's what we've been having conversations about, right? This team seems to lack an internal leader. I've said it a million times. I'll say it again. They won in 2012 because after 2011, Marcus Wheaton and Jordan Poyer laid down the law in the locker room. We're not going through this again. Figure it out or leave. Who's doing that now? Is it Seth? Is it Nick? Is it an older guy?
But it doesn't have to be a quarterback, though.
Okay, it doesn't, but
Yeah.
I would settle for anyone.
Yeah.
Well, and you talk about how it can be a difficult world to navigate going forward with two quarterbacks, but Gary Anderson has said that we have two different offensive styles, and so that's what we're going to see going forward. Now, Lindsay mentioned the better defense, and I know Coach Anderson encouraged by how the defense has played lately.
In this league, 17 points in 6 quarters. That's pretty good, and it's not enough to win games, which is ultimately the goal. And we're not just trying to make something sound good or looking for positives. That's not the case, but that is good football. And to play the way they played in that last game, they did some things well. There's still some things that they can definitely clean up. A lot of things they can clean up, and but overall, they got out of the drives when they needed to there at the end, which was good to see. The communication was better. We still have a lot of things to work on with, just our physicality. Is still not there. When the run, you want it to be a 1-yard run or a 2-yard run. Many times it ends up being a 4-yard run, and whether that's pushing the pile or it's knocking a guy back or the suddenness of our tackling or a missed tackle. But they're addressing it, and it was better. So they're making strides, and they don't mind being challenged. So that's probably the one thing I would say about them, and this whole team was the same way. I haven't backed off an ounce on them, and I get that question all the time. Do you have to back off on them and let them know they're doing some good things? We always tell them they're doing good things, but these kids bounce back because their expectations are to get better.
There were still some issues clearly in tackling, as we saw, but 3 consecutive 3-and-outs late in the game kept the Beavers' hopes alive, as it's time now for the Les Schwab quick fix. Les Schwab doing the right thing since 1952, and we can see that the rush average, while still too high at 5.1 per carry, has been lowered the last couple of games. And the thing I like, too, just overall total defense, Colorado came in averaging 447 yards and left with 328 total yards. So Slade, it did look like, particularly late when the defense had to get stops, they were able to get them.
They did do much better. You got a guy like, Kyle Pecco stepping up on that 3rd down and making a huge play. It's just the small things, attention to detail. There's things like they had a Cobra call, which is a weak side blitz with the corner. The defensive end didn't slant inside, so didn't crash that edge around and give the corner a straight route to the quarterback. Quarterback threw it. Didn't hurt us that bad. Just a 5-yard gain, but hey, he could have gotten in there, possibly tipped the ball. Interception right there. It's the smaller things to where even though you aren't the blitzing player, you still have a job to perform in order to make that play work. And that's that smaller details they really need to work on.
Baby steps, but I will say that, Gary Anderson says they're not as physical. Well, you got to be physical if you want to tackle Devontae Booker this week in Salt Lake City.
Absolutely, no question about that. Well, coming up, we will explore further the Seth Collins-Nick Mitchell dynamic. Is there a quarterback, quote-unquote, controversy? We'll deal with that issue a little bit. But coming up next, we will get to our Wilson Motors game balls from Lindsay and Slade coming out of the Beavers' performance against Colorado. Welcome back into Talkin Beavers, and what a night it was for the Beavers' homecoming this past Saturday, with Colorado coming to town and the Navy SEALs parachuting in to kind of get things rolling. That was a big-time moment in a night filled with a lot of unusual sorts of things going on. It's time for our Wilson Motors game balls coming out of the Colorado game. Lindsay, what do you have?
How about Kyle Pecco? Huge game for him. 6 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, lots of emotion. That tackle for loss was that big 3rd down stop that gave the Beavers a chance offensively. And Slade, they couldn't really put it together offensively, but you liked an offensive player this game.
I did. Mr. Ryan Nall. We call him a hashtag wrecking Nall now, I guess. There's a lot of hashtags about that guy. But what he's brought, and this is what Coach said after the game. He goes, I want that war daddy everywhere I go. Those are the guys I want to recruit, and those are the guys I wanted to surround myself with. He's tough, he's physical, he's unselfish. He's everything that a great football player stands for in my mind, and he's a freshman, and that excites the hell out of me. You know what? It excites the hell out of me, too. Because if you watch him, he's so physical, he's so strong, and he just brings it to the table every single play. I don't care if there's no hole at all, he's going to make it like he does right here for the touchdown. He's impressive, and he's a freshman, and I'm excited he's on our team.
He's only going to get stronger. Imagine what he's going to be like after he lives in the weight room for a couple years. And I think that Gary Anderson also said something about, I want 30 or 40 of that guy, you know. If you're a veteran on the team, that's a little, coach is making a point right there, I think.
Yeah, and Ryan, too, you mentioned, you know, the wrecking null, and as you said, a lot of people
I like
are having...
that one better than null ball.
Null ball's pretty cool, but this one's very good. How about that?
Oh, no.
He
I'm just
came
glad
in
he
like
has clothes on.
Hashtag wrecking null. Good point, Slade. Thank you. But there's a lot of buzz about the wrecking null right now, as it were. And you know, what about Ryan? As when Coach Anderson talks about the importance of a dominant back in this league, a featured back, can he be the #1 featured back in this offense?
No, he can't because of what they run. They need, Slade and I have talked about this, they need someone who is shifty, fast, and this guy is physical and going to run you over. I don't think that he can be that person.
He's not what this offense does. I mean, he's a great change-up option. He did great against Colorado, who has the last rush defense in the Pac-12. I mean, you're not going to see guys bounce off him against Utah like they did last game.
Right.
I love what he does. I love what he brings to the table and everything. But as far as a starter, he still has a little more yet to prove. It's going to be hard for him to do that in our style of play.
And here's kind of the situation that we find ourselves in, right? We've talked about this a little bit. People don't give enough credit to how long it takes to change a system. Ganderson came in and decided he wanted to flip the system on its head, scratching the pro style, going to this spread attack. It was not like when Urban Meyer went to Florida and, okay, we're going to change this, but we're going to do it slowly. I mean, when we were watching Nick Mitchell throw, I was sitting there thinking, gosh, you know, if Luke Del Rio was still on this roster, he would be a good option, but he's not on the roster anymore. They kind of let him walk out the door, and now they're in this situation. You made your bed, you got to lie in it. They decided to go with this offense. That's totally fine. Like, they know more about football than any of us on this show, including Slade, much as I love him, and they did it for a reason. But now you're in this situation. This is your personnel. You got to figure out what to do with it.
Now, on the personnel front, though, with Ryan Nall emerging with that 122-yard game, and albeit a much tougher defense coming, with the injuries at the position, with Storm Bars Woods having been limited, Chris Brown, Damian Haskins, Deltron Sands,
what have those guys even done?
Well, that's what I'm saying. So, I mean, Dave Baldwin and Telly Lockett and these coaches are smart. I mean, they're going to get as much as they can out of Nall. He may be the featured guy.
I'll tell you, if he starts ripping off runs like he did last week against Utah, I'll be right behind him, pushing for him to grab the starting role. I just don't see that happening because Utah is so physical. It's like playing a Stanford. They're used to bigger backs. They face that every week in practice, just a physical mentality. But if he can, I mean, that's going to really open up our offense and help us out the rest of the year.
And that'll be interesting to kind of observe if he does do that, does well against Utah. And doing well against Utah is a relative term, right? Like, you could rush for 60 yards, and I would consider that pretty good against Utah. Do they then tweak some stuff and try to work around it? You know, these are the players, like, this staff, to their credit, they have said that since they got here. We can win with these guys. We're not going to clean house. Okay, but so then do you have to change some stuff?
Well, speaking of winning, and Coach Anderson, very interesting comments in his press availability on Monday. He talked about the 4 things that you need to win in the Pac-12 Conference. A running back or 2 is among them. Let's hear the rest from Coach Anderson next.
My favorite Halloween costume growing up was probably Robin. It's the retro Robin costume, the red with the green and the yellow.
Precisely, Robin.
Power Rangers.
Power Rangers, which one? The pink one, probably?
No, the red one.
Morphin' time. Red Ranger power.
Simba.
I would say my favorite Halloween costume would probably have to be the Scream mask.
I was a cheerleader one year.
it was like last minute, day before Halloween, and I went into like Party City, and that was like the only thing that fit me. So I was like, screw it, let's be a cheerleader.
Little disappointed not to see any of my old Universal Studios heroes like Lon Chaney Jr. as the Wolfman, or Boris as Frankenstein, Boris Karloff, Bela Lugosi as Dracula. These were my favorites. They didn't come up with this generation somehow.
Yeah, my best one is I was Barbie a few years ago, and actually I went to football practice in my costume because I had to be at some event right after practice, and I didn't have the pink heels, but I had on a lot of blue eyeshadow.
Good for you,
A lot of blue eyeshadow.
Slade, did you have a favorite growing up?
You know, growing up, I was the Seattle Seahawks quarterback, which is ironic because I hit quarterbacks. But also, my little brother, who's 4 years younger, Zane, played for Oregon State, was a Dalmatian, and we have it in the picture. I wish we could show that to you guys, as he'd be really embarrassed.
Now, speaking of Dalmatians and the Brennan family, they're into this.
Brent Brennan, the receivers coach, he and his family are very, very into Halloween. Remember this in 2012? He made recruiting calls dressed as Captain America. But their family does stuff all the time. Years ago, I've never seen photos of this, but they told me that Courtney, his wife, was Cruella de Vil, and then the rest of them were Dalmatians. So maybe we could partner with Zane's costume. And
I do have to admit to one, I was the rabbit in Alice in Wonderland one time. Our puppy was Alice, and my girlfriend was the Queen of Hearts. Yeah, I got strung into that one.
Very creative. Now, if the Beavers find a way to break through and win in Salt Lake City, it would be nice to see Brent and others on the streets of Salt Lake City before going to the airport. That would be nice. Now, to win against the Utah Utes is going to be an incredible challenge given Utah's trajectory this season. But as Gary Anderson and his staff builds the new era at Oregon State, Gary believes he knows the key things to winning Pac-12 football games.
In this league, I think it's imperative. This is just simply my one coach's opinion as I've gone through half a season basically in the Pac-12 conference. But there's 4 things you absolutely need to have a chance to be a good team in this league. And number 1 is quality quarterback play, verging on a high-level quarterback play. Number 2 is a dominating running back or 2. Number 3 is pass rushers, and number 4 is corners. And if you don't have those, at least 2 of those 4, you're going to have a real hard time winning a game in the Pac-12. If you have, 4 for 4, you're going to be in a pretty good spot to be able to compete and play at a high level in a crazy league.
So, Coach Anderson, there are the 4 that he just talked about. The high level of quarterback play, dominating running back or 2, good pass rushers, good cornerback. So, where are the Beavers right now if those are the key, the foundational kinds of things? Let's take them quickly one by one. Slade, Lindsay, what about those 4 elements?
Okay, they don't have a high-level, consistent quarterback yet.
Yeah.
Seth, I think, will be that in the future. We just talked about Ryan Nall as a running back. That's kind of a remains to be seen, right? Kind of dangling out there. Can he be an every down guy is the question. Pass rushers.
Well, let's let Slade.
This is his area of expertise.
What about that? I mean, obviously a key, according to Gary.
They need some work with that. We don't get a lot of pressure with not blitzing. We need to get more pressure out of our base coverages. So I'd say that's still a question mark right there. I think Kyle made some strides forward this last game, and if he can continue doing that, that puts us in the right direction. Because I tell you what, with Vic and I, when I was playing, we would have been nothing without Steven in the middle. Because Vic and I are flying off the edge, and what are they going to step up into Steven? It made it so easy for us. So having a big, solid guy like that in the middle to where the quarterback can't go anywhere, can't take a step up, helps so much.
And then cornerbacks, no, they're not great right now. Like, that's the bottom line.
And they're hurt, too. I mean,
That's
physically.
a good point.
Honestly, I haven't thought our cornerback play is that bad. Larry's gotten beat on a few, but as far as like the mental mistakes and stuff, they've been getting beat physically and not overly. So, I mean, I'd say out of all of this, I'd say our corners are probably the biggest strength in this.
You know, what's interesting is what I think, and Gary Anderson talked about this post-game on Saturday, what you need to win in this league, you got to score. Conference teams, in conference, winning teams average 40 points a game. You know what Oregon State is averaging in conference? 18.7. That's a problem.
Yeah, and without question, with reference to the cornerbacks, and just a quick note on Treston Decoud, what a frightening moment that was. And so we are grateful indeed that Treston is back at practice. He's going through protocol, but it is our hope and belief that Treston's going to play again. I think he's played some good football, Slade, to your point. And this play is just absolutely frightening. And Treston, part of a very physical game. Justin Strong had come in and made a big hit. And I don't know how you felt. I was grateful to hear the news later that he was moving all extremities, because I had my doubts when I saw that.
Yeah, so did I. And I thought it was a really good sign that he was back in the locker room by post-game. He didn't have to spend the night in the hospital. That was huge.
And he'll be fine.
You know, and he, so that's big time. As Gary said, there's a lot more than just football that he's dealing with now after a traumatic moment like that. And Larry Scott has played some good football. So the thing I like about the future of the cornerback position, Dwayne Williams, to me, is showing signs of being a guy that can really help going forward. So as we go forward on this edition of Talkin Beavers, Mike Parker with Lindsey Schnell and Slade Norris, we're going to take a look a little bit more closely at the two quarterbacks that we saw against Colorado, and how the Beavers will try to navigate that two-quarterback world going forward. We're going to check out some numbers, a little bit of video highlights. We've already touched on the big question coming out of the Colorado game, in a sense, is who is the quarterback, who's the starting quarterback? How about having them both on the field at the same time for a couple of snaps as we talk about Seth Collins and Nick Mitchell?
Well, I want to say, first of all, I'm disappointed I lost a bet. I thought that Mitchell was going to take the first snap and Seth was going to line up at running back.
Well, he did.
No, I thought he was going to line up at receiver. That's what it was. That's what it was. I knew I was wrong.
You were onto something.
But yeah, you know, I think we were talking about this, right? He's just not consistent yet. And you know what? It's okay. He's young. I don't expect him to be consistent. I don't think anyone does. But they need someone who can move the chains at least semi-consistently. And Seth is a highlight reel waiting to happen, but he's not moving the chains yet.
That play right there, though, to Jordan Villeman, again, showed the potential that he has in the pass game. And here, Mitchell hitting Guyton on the slant was a big-time play. We've already talked about that beautiful over-the-shoulder throw. And this was the trick play with both guys on the field. Look at the athleticism of Nick Mitchell. His first stat as a Beaver was as a receiver making a catch, Slade.
That's got to be some kind of Pac-12 record. I've never seen that before. But for both quarterbacks, for Seth, his strength is scrambling, is creating time. The wide receivers haven't helped him with that. I mean, they need to go down and sit down and watch film on the Seahawks. Watch how the Seahawks wide receivers get open when Russell scrambles all over the place. Because really, how many passes a week does Russell Wilson make out of the pocket, creating time?
Yeah.
That's what Seth can do. The wide receivers need to help him out with that. And then with Nick.
Do you think they bail out early?
I just think they sit and they don't move. They don't know where to go. And so I think that has to be an effort in practice, an emphasis to go through and make sure they all know that, because with as much as Seth can do, he doesn't have to run the ball all the time. He can run it all around and then throw like he did with Villeman getting open right there.
I was just thinking as you're talking about that one of the greatest things about Marcus Mariota, you know, who won the Heisman, and I know that we're not supposed to talk about the Ducks on this show, but his receivers always said that, you know, you could never give up because he was going to find time and he was going to find you. And right now, I think it's just part of the reason that the receivers are dropping a lot of balls, I believe, is because they just haven't been targeted that much. This is so different. There's still a level of adjustment going on that they're not used to it, and they're certainly not used to getting it from someone who's scrambling all over the field.
Slade, I have a question for you just in terms of the different styles. How difficult is it for the offensive personnel to adapt to, even as we saw in the Colorado game on 3rd and 7, here comes Nick Mitchell into the game. How difficult is that for the personnel?
That is one thing I wanted to talk about with Nick. You've got to understand that he hasn't practiced with these guys.
Right.
I mean, he overtook Marcus. He was a third-string quarterback, you know, and so all these intermediate routes, these short slants that he's missing, the interception when he threw behind the guy right there, those are all timing routes, and he has had no chance to develop timing. His deep throws, those throws with touch, those were beautiful. I want to see him go through, have a week of practice with all the starting wide receivers and just get all the reads down correctly and everything, and have him go through and see how he does this this next week when he's facing a harder defense, but give him a chance before we go and judge him.
The one thing it does do, it gives Kyle Whittingham and that defensive staff for Utah a lot more to think about.
Yeah.
Okay, you're preparing for the Beavers, and a couple of weeks ago you kind of knew what you were going to get. Now it's a mixed bag and maybe a little bit more difficult to prepare for. Now, speaking of Kyle and the Utah Utes, there he is, the dean of Pac-12 coaches, and having a remarkable season, the loss to USC notwithstanding. We'll preview the Utes next on Talkin Beavers.
As one of the best wins, it just comes down to a couple plays, and that's what you got to be good at.
Booker, handoff, running room, 50, 45, 40, high step.
You know, we tried to throw the ball early in the game, and that stuff wasn't working. So once they started seeing that these huge holes was opening up, and they just continued to handing me the ball off.
Booker to the 10, Booker to the 5.
That game hurt, I'm not going to lie.
He's in ball game. Utah wins.
I'm not going to say it derailed our season, but at the same time, it derailed our season. If we would have won that game, I think we would have got over the hump.
Last 2 times we played them, it's gone to overtime. We have a lot of guys on our team from Utah. Some of the coaches came from there.
Kalani Sitake, the defensive coordinator.
Kalani Sitake and them, they went over to Oregon State, so definitely we kind of seek that as a rivalry now.
Not so much that we have bitterness about it. We definitely just have that game marked on our schedule.
Well, these last 2 meetings have just been classic football games, different kinds of games. 2 years ago at Rice-Eccles, what an offensive explosion for both teams. Brandon Cooks catching the game winner in overtime. And then last year, just an absolute slugfest. I love that kind of game. It felt to me like a throwback kind of game. But Devontae Booker, we saw him rip off that huge run right after Jordan Villeman had broken onto the scene with a spectacular touchdown pass and the lead. And on a 3rd down play, Booker went for about 60 or 70 yards, and that changed things. He'd been bottled up most of the game. I don't know what kind of game to expect this time, but the last 2, Slade, Lindsay, have been magnificent football games.
You know, that last year, first of all, I think Larry Scott's very right. That was a huge turning point, and we anticipated that on this very show last year. I remember that. But that was kind of Devontae Booker's emergence into the national college football picture. That was when people started to take notice of him. I think there's an argument to be made that he is the best running back in the Pac-12. I also think that last year was an ugly game. It was a rock fight, Mike. You can like those games if you want, but I wanted to see some scoring. But I think that this year, I mean, Utah is going to be really, really, really angry after completely laying an egg at USC. And Slade, you know that those type of games, there's nothing makes you feel better after a bad loss than going out and hitting someone.
You never want to play the undefeated team that just lost the week before. That's always the rule of thumb. They're coming in here. This game was already circled. They already had this game focused on their map, and they just lost last week. This is the worst possible time. So with that being said, there are some positives. We do have a coaching staff that really knows those players.
That's true.
We can really game plan specifically against those guys, because nobody knows them better than him. But it's going to be a tough one. I mean, they have some strengths that don't match up with our strengths, and it's going to be a hard game.
I will say this about Utah too, Mike. You know, Travis Wilson, everyone's had been kind of waiting all season for when is Wilson going to emerge, the Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah.
And he threw 4 picks last week.
Yeah, and Utah's still sitting in a good position. So, you know, even though they were sort of, a lot of people were talking about them as being the #1 team in the country and the team that had played the best football through the first half of the season. But as those standings revealed, they are still very much in line to win the South, and they think they can be a 1-loss team to crack that 4-team college football playoff.
It's going to come down to them and Stanford out of this conference. I really believe that, although I do still think the Ducks can run the table now that Vernon Adams is back, but they might have already hurt themselves too much.
Now, what about Travis Wilson? You mentioned that, and Travis has he's done a lot of great things in his career. He is a dual threat guy, but there's something about his passing motion, something about occasionally maybe getting locked in a receiver you hope that the Beavers can take advantage of.
I think he's a great thrower. I just think it's a mental thing with him. I think he sometimes gets a little flustered, and he'll be so great and do so well, then all of a sudden he'll make that one throw where it's like, what were you looking at? You know, and so when a quarterback is like that, you really as a defense just have to be ready. You have to know that it's going to come when it does, just like last week when we had those tip balls. You have to take advantage of what he gives you, and if we can do that this week, I honestly believe this week we have to get turnovers. We have to help our offense out with the field possession, because if we don't, this defense is much too good to run the ball all the way down the field.
And the other thing with Wilson, as Slade points out, if you can get in that quarterback's head early in general, it helps a lot, but especially with Wilson, who has had a history of kind of this up and down, which has been partially due to injury. But I mean, he threw 3 picks to the same guy last week.
And the thing, too, and you heard Devontae Booker earlier say last year we were trying to throw the ball. The Beaver defense and a lot of the personnel is back and has an understanding. And as you said, Kalani and the defensive coaches have a pretty good understanding of what Travis Wilson wants to do. I still think this Beaver defense is sitting on a more complete performance where they do cash in on the turnovers. Certainly on the other side, Utah's defense has been tremendous. And
with Kalani Sitake's kids.
Helped build it and recruit the kids and help coach those kids up. Kyle Whittingham, a defensive-oriented coach, to be sure. And so you can see that the Beavers' offense, which we've already touched on, is going to, they're up against a stout unit, although they could be without one of their best players in Jared Norris.
Yeah, but still, I mean, they beat you up. We've talked about this forever. Even when Utah was struggling in the Pac-12, you went there and you were going to be sore the next day. And right now, as Oregon State already deals with some injuries and some depth issues, it could be a long night.
Hunter Dimmick has stepped up and replaced Nate Orchard's productivity to a large extent. They're not sacking people as much, Slade, but they're very physical and tough defensively.
Hunter had a great tip ball for interception in that USC game. But this game, Seth's not going to be able to run the ball on them. And that's why my line of thinking was, why not give Nick a start? I mean, what's going to hurt? Let's see if we can actually get something done through the year. They're 9th in the Pac-12 in pass defense, but they do come up with a lot of interceptions there first. But we'll see. Why not change something up?
Well, I think we're going to, as Coach Anderson has said, we have 2 quarterbacks, 2 offensive systems now, so you'll see both quarterbacks play and try to have success against a very good Utah defense. Slade Norris all year long has gotten us ready with game day attire, whether orange pants or stuff for the little ones. We have another edition of Slade at the OSU Beaver store. What's happening, Slade?
Yeah, I look good. Oh, hi. I'm here at the downtown Portland location, OSU Beaver store on the corner of Southwest 6th and Alder. And guys, we're open on Halloween to bring your kids in, so bring them on in and pick up some Beaver gear along the way. We've got Utah this week. It's going to be a cold one. The pants look great on me, they'll look great on you too, and they'll keep you warm throughout the whole game. We've got the pants, the rain jackets, or windproof, waterproof, weatherproof, anything you guys need, come on in and pick it up for this winter. I want to feature this one and make sure you guys take a look at it. It's the down jacket, it's the Omni Heat, keep you warm throughout the whole entire game, whole season. The Beavs are going to heat it up this weekend, you should too. Get over here, get your fan gear, OSU Beaver store, fans start here.
He's a hard-nosed runner. He's got a motor that he just doesn't stop, and he's one of those guys that you go to hit him, and he's really a force to be reckoned with, and will run right through you.
Well, he's a complete back. He's got all the qualities of a big-time back. He's big, he's strong, he's physical. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can block, and so that's probably his biggest asset, is that he has no weakness. He's got across-the-board ability.
Head coach Kyle Whittingham and Jared Norris talking about the great running back Devontae Booker. It's time for the Toyota of Portland on Broadway tune-up with Slade Norris. And as we welcome you back to the In Focus Mondo Pad, I dare say, Slade, as we look at the top weaponry of the Utah Utes, it's possible Devontae, I mean, he's going to take his place among the top 4, but certainly one of the great backs in the country. But we have the top 4 weapons, in your opinion, the most dangerous players for the Utes. So where do you start?
We start first off, with the guy with the best last name on here, Jared Norris. And the reason why he is down so low is because we don't know for sure he's going to play. He sat out against USC. He's their leader on their team. He's their linebacker. He gets the play calls in. He's the guy that brought the Pac-12 network with their media day. He brings so much to this squad. He's a physical guy. He's all over the place, 48 tackles, 8 tackles per game. He brings so much to this defense. Without him, you saw against USC, they really got torched.
And as we've already talked about, he will play with a great deal of emotion. He loves Kalani Sitake, Elisa Tuiaki, the Oregon State coaches who used to coach him. He's going to play with a lot of emotion in this game if he plays, but that hasn't quite been decided as we speak. So who's number 3?
Next one is our quarterback, Travis Wilson. He's really had an up and down career so far. He's been benched earlier in his career. This year he's played well, but he does turn the ball over a lot. Against USC, 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Really struggled against him. If you can get pressure on him, he will make the mistakes. However, he can also run the ball. He had 6 carries against Oregon for 100 yards. We have to make sure we don't just focus on this guy, but we also take his legs out of the game as well.
You know, he's a senior leader. He has all kinds of skills, as you mentioned, but the pick 6 he threw against USC changed that whole football game. Not even the pick 6 so much. Cameron Smith was caught. It led to the tying touchdown. Then he did throw a pick 6. So the Beavers and their linebackers hope they can make some plays against Wilson.
They definitely can, and it all starts up front. We've got to get pressure. We've got to get pressure in his face. As we can force him to make those errant decisions, we have a chance in this game to go through and cause some turnovers, get some possession on our side.
I think I know who's going to be number 1, but humor me a little bit here. I mean, it's either Booker or Gianni Paul. They're both great football players, but who is number 2 on your list?
Number 2 is going to be Gianni Paul. There we go. They're
almost had me there.
He's really overshadowed Jared this year because he's done so much. He's such a great athlete. He's had a lot of injuries in his career. Broke his hand, broke his foot. It's really held him back. This year, he's been able to explode. If you look at that, 2 fumbles forced, 2 interceptions. With this defense, he's the guy that's all over the field. They love what he's doing here. He's become a quick fan favorite. He talks a lot in the media. He's fun. He's explosive with his personality and his play. He's a fun guy to watch.
Well, that leaves Devontae, and so he gets the number 1 slot, obviously. The thing, Slade, I remember most about Devontae Booker and his 1,512-yard rush season last year was what he did against the Beavers in breaking one huge run to change the game.
And that's what he does. He has potential. Just like Coach Whittingham said, he can do anything. Pass block, catch out of the backfield, as you see right there, run the ball. We have to make sure we tackle by committee. It's gonna look like Ryan Nall against Colorado last week. Yeah. This guy is a big, physical running back, and he's a next-level guy. I expect him to see in the NFL and have a great career.
The one thing that Travis Wilson, and he's on your list too, according to some scouting reports and critics, he can get locked in on Devontae a little bit as his go-to receiver, and that hurt him a little bit against USC.
He can, and if you watch Travis go through his progressions, he will stare at a guy, and that's why he has so many interceptions, because sometimes you can go through and read right from the snap, read where he's going to go, and he loves this guy, but how could you not?
Yeah.
The stuff that he brings to the table, Travis has to like a guy like that.
I don't particularly love him, and I didn't when he broke free in the 4th quarter last year at Research Stadium, but it was a great football game last year. The Beavers are hoping to make it another one in Salt Lake City on Halloween. And coming up, we will have our final thoughts as the Beavers head to Utah and Rice-Eccles for a Halloween showdown. Final thoughts next on Talkin Beavers. The Beavers getting ready for another visit to Rice-Eccles Stadium. Slade has played in that stadium. A memorable game, to be sure. A heartbreaker, but a great football game. 31-28, Utah winning it right after the Beavers the week before knocked off USC on a Thursday night. Sorry to bring it up, Slade, but I just seen it, and you sitting here next to me brings it back. We hope that you will join us not only here for Talkin Beavers every Wednesday, but Inside the Huddle with Gary Anderson on Thursday. Hashtag Beavers Football with Slade this week, Thursday at 8:30, and then Saturday, CSN Game Day at 9 in the morning. Slade, sorry, that was a heartbreaking kind of game, but again, there have been some great football games between these two programs. That was one of them.
We almost made it the whole show, almost the whole show.
But seeing it and it came back to me in a flash.
He probably remembers all the tackles you made, all the tackles you missed.
I had 2 sacks that game. There we go. But no, that is a really difficult place to play. They don't give that place enough credit. The fans are great there, and they're all over you the
right
entire
on the
game.
field.
Yeah, it goes straight up from being. Yeah, it's fun, but it's tough.
And they get loud when Utah's defense is on the field, and Utah's defense seems to respond. They're built to stop people, but as we take a look at where they sit, a lot of ones up there. Now, they are fourth in scoring defense, but leading in interceptions, forced fumbles, turnover margin. Kyle Whittingham, along with Kalani and other coaches who are now on the Oregon State staff, have built a really physical and tough defense.
Yes, Slade, I would like to know, as a former defensive lineman, what makes their defense so good? I think that it's because they're really physical, but you played football, so I'd like to hear your take on this.
Physical, number one. Number two, they do their job. And so they're in the correct gap every time, and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're supposed to bounce out the running back, and that's what they do. And so when you do your job and you do it tough, that's all you have to ask for in football. It's an easy game right there.
Okay, so if it's an easy game, then the one thing, easy, hard, for the Beavers to pull a big upset here in Salt Lake City.
Honestly, the field position. They have some of the best kicker and punters in the nation. Right. They pin you down and then work on their defense. If we can go through cause turnovers, get special teams, and most importantly, turnovers, if we can get that, we can get the field position and really help us out.
What a perfect segue into mine, which is that you have to take those turnovers and turn them into points. The defense is doing a much better job. We saw that in the Colorado game. They put the offense in positions to win, and then there we go, punting the ball away.
Well, a great moment of the 2008 game, Al Afalava's pick six. So something like that would certainly behoove the Beavers to get again, heading to Salt Lake City. The Beavers and Utah Utes, and there's a lot to get to. We'll have it all for you again next week and wrapping it up. But be sure to join Inside the Huddle with Coach Anderson Thursday at 8 o'clock right here on CSNNW. And then, of course, #Beavers Football with Slade, 8:30 Thursday nights.